Hello. I'm Agnes. I'm from Tartu, Estonia, and I'm gonna graduate my bachelor's degree in a month in environmental planning and landscape design in a chair of landscape architecture.
Hello everyone, I'm Greta from Hungary. I earned my bachelor's in landscape architecture in Budapest and I'm currently in Stuttgart, Germany, doing my master's in integrated urbanism and social design.
Hello, my name is Adam. I am 24 years old. I come originally from Kaun Jaromír in the northern part of the Czech Republic, but nowadays I study landscape architecture in Mendel University in Lednice.
My name is Saskia Skog and I'm from Malmö, Sweden. And I'm currently in my Masters of the Landscape Architecture program, the 4th year of 5 in Sweden.
Hello, my name is Alice. I study landscape architecture in France. Now, at the moment, I'm in gap year between my first and second year of master to understand which direction I want to take in landscape architecture.
Hello, I'm Bulut. I'm studying in Istanbul right now. I'm from Turkey. I'm in my 3rd year of bachelor degree right now in Istanbul University.
My name's Connie. I'm from Ireland. I'm currently studying in University College of Dublin and I live in Dublin, but I'm actually originally from Northern Ireland in Enniskillen.
Hi, my name is Anna. I'm studying in Angers, a French city, and I'm from Réunion Island, which is a French island. And I'm in my 1st year of a master to become a landscape architect.
Dinu from Romania, and thank you guys for having me for your podcast.
Hello, my name is Flore. I'm 25 years old and I'm French. I was living in Normandy and I studied in Lille in the north of the country. I graduated in 2023.
Hi, I'm Eden. I'm 21 years old. I study landscape architecture in Ghent in Belgium. And I am currently, hopefully, graduating with a bachelor's degree in June.
Hi, my name is Tobias Arends. I'm a landscape architecture student from the Netherlands. And currently I'm on the brink of starting my bachelor thesis. I've actually started just now at the Wageningen University. And next year I'll start my internship at a Dutch landscape architecture firm. And I have yet to decide what comes after that. We'll see.
Hello and welcome to the podcast Landschaftsarchitektur, or as you would say in English, Next Generation Landscape Architecture. I'm Rahel Küng, a freshly graduated student from Rapperswil in Switzerland.
And I'm Jakob Ennemann. I study in Munich, in Germany, in my last year of the Bachelor of Landscape Architecture and Landscape Planning.
For about a year or so, we have a podcast about landscape architecture together, mainly in German, but because we have friends all over Europe, we have now a special episode in English for you. And it's about the future.
As you heard in the introduction, we have voices from over 10 different countries from Europe. We asked each of the persons the same 5 questions about their goals, challenges, and areas of responsibility in our profession of landscape architecture. We also asked about wishes during studies and advice on how landscape architecture can become more widely known. The answers are incredibly interesting and diverse. We've shortened some of them slightly so that as many voices as possible could be included in this special episode. Enjoy listening.
Let's start with our first question. What's your personal goal in landscape architecture and where do you want to specialize? We got some really different answers from all over Europe, but one thing connects them all. Everyone wants to use landscape to make life a bit better, for people and for nature. For Eden Bos from Belgium and Agnes Aromenza from Estonia, landscape architecture is all about connection. They both talk about small scale design, creating public spaces that people can use every day, places that make you stop for a moment, interact, and feel something. And Greta Fazekas from Hungary brings that same idea into the city. She wants to use urban ecology and social design to help people reconnect, not just with nature, but also with each other.
My goal in landscape architecture is bringing humans, people closer to nature again. In which direction I want to specialize is like those smaller public projects, like a playground for children or a main square in a city, something close to the people that they can like use in their everyday whereabouts.
It's a tough question because I still do not know really where I'm standing in a scale or more in-depth topics in our field. But I can say that I'm more inspired right now in small-scale interventions and designs where the people who are using it could really benefit the first moment. And I'm into this social interaction and this first emotions that people have with small-scale objects, whether it's just a tactical urbanism approach of redesigning a street or some artistic installations to perceive the space around us in a different way.
I want to work in cities that neglect nature and citizens completely lose connection to each other, their roots and the environment. I believe I can contribute to solving these issues by focusing on urban ecology, social design, and sociology.
Then there are those thinking big, designing for cities and the future. Saskia Sko from Sweden is focusing on urban forestry and plant design, making cities greener, healthier, and more sustainable. Connie Dawson from Northern Ireland wants to work directly with communities, helping towns prepare for climate change, turning design into a tool for resilience. And Tobias Arndts from Netherlands believes in bottom-up design, making it easier for citizens to take part and shape their own surroundings.
I would say that my personal goal with this education and being a landscape architect is mainly to have a work that I feel is contributing to a sustainable future and developing sustainable cities. Currently, I've been specializing a bit towards urban forestry and tree plantations in urban forests, and also plant design in urban areas with focus on trees and shrubs.
My personal goal in landscape architecture is to work with communities. I actually don't want to work in an office or with a big company. I want to work directly with communities, helping them get their towns and areas ready for climate change. I want to work with climate change adaptation and mitigation and work with biodiversity initiatives.
I just spoke to a friend about this, and then I realized that ever since I started to study landscape architecture, I've always had sort of like a soft spot for everything that isn't necessarily designed, but implemented by caring people of all sorts and backgrounds. So civilian initiatives or spaces that aren't in the governmental focus and are therefore taken over by creatives. So my main goal, I guess, within landscape architecture is to make these initiatives easier to form by focusing on participation, constructive discussions, and communities. And that goal would lead the rest of my studies into a quite communicative specialization, but that isn't really my aim at the moment. Firstly, I would just like to learn more about how to design with then a focus on a bottom-up approach and broaden my knowledge on the supporting disciplines so I can become a better landscape architect.
For others, the dream lies outside the city, in the open landscape. Flore Gagnon from France wants to combine agriculture and landscape design in France. She imagines rural areas where people can live both. She imagines rural areas where people can both live and work with the land. Her fellow French colleague Alice Goss also focuses on the countryside, on revitalizing rural territories in sustainable, multidisciplinary ways. And Adam Miller from the Czech Republic takes that idea global. He's fascinated by tropical rainforests and wants to work on projects that protect those diverse ecosystems.
And in Australia, I'm not working as a landscape architect. I'm much working, like doing a working holiday visa, so working in agricultural farm. And that's what I want to specialize. Actually, I think when I will get back to France, I will go back to landscape architecture, but I think not in an office. I would rather work with people in a rural area at a local scale, and I think I will maybe myself start an agricultural project, as I think that in a rural area, that's the biggest point of our future, producing food. And also work on mobility and public spaces in villages and the human link that potentially villages have. So I really would like to work and live at the same place and not in a city.
My personal goal in landscape architecture is to specialize in the sustainable revitalization of rural territories, to have on a multidisciplinary approach, at the same time on the social, ecological, and economics levels.
Due to the name of our program, so of our field, so landscape, really, I want to work with landscape out of the urban zone, out of the cities mostly. I feel my higher profit is associated to the nature in the places out of the city, agricultural landscape, forest, woodlands, and definitely work with water. And in this thing, I'm really amazed by tropical zones, mostly the tropical rainforests. I really love these biomes and these ecosystems, how rich in case of diversity it is. So work with the natural landscape somewhere in tropical zone, maybe be part of some of these projects, because I feel that I will enjoy it. I'm excited of working on a project like this, and so I feel that I can be the most useful in these areas because of my passion of it.
Some of our voices focus more on knowledge, on teaching, learning, and inspiring others. Bulut Cengiz from Turkey wants to open his own design studio while teaching, bringing new ideas into both practice and academia. And Anna Robert from France takes a research path. Dino Lazar from Romania wants to educate people to love and care for their landscapes, because, as he says, ignorance is the most harmful attitude towards nature.
Actually, my main goal is in landscape architecture is establish my own concept design studio. But realistically, for Turkey, I want to be an academician. It's a lot easier than establishing a concept design studio.
I think I'm more interested in studying the ecological aspects of the area of study. For example, I may be very interested in some research about contaminated sites, especially the cemeteries, which interest me more and more.
What I really want to achieve through landscape architecture is a change in my home country's landscape. I say this is the most ambitious one for the complexity that it requires. The hardest part isn't finding your country-specific approach to landscape or specific elements in its design, but educating people in maintaining it. In this case, educating could also mean teaching people to take care of it, to appreciate it, ultimately love it, and have an emotional connection with it. They can even hate it, but ignorance is the most harmful attitude towards it.
So, whether it's all about small community spaces or tropical rainforests, whether it's rural life, research, or education, all these stories show how broad and full of purpose landscape architecture can be.
Our second question looks ahead, maybe the most important of all. We asked, what are the biggest challenges landscape architects will face in the future? And well, everyone agreed on one thing: the future is going to be complex. Whilst the answers covered multiple topics, Connie from Northern Ireland, Adam from Czech Republic, and Saskia from Sweden specifically talked about the pressure of global change, the heat, the water, the shifting climate, and how all of it will shape not only our profession, but how people live.
Some of the biggest challenges landscape architects are facing are exactly that. I think climate change is going to define our careers for the rest of our lives, and probably the landscape architects that come after us. I think biodiversity decline is going to be a really big thing, and it's going to be something that actually landscape architects are very well suited to deal with. So I think our expertise will be looked for a lot in that. And I actually think that a big challenge that landscape architects are going to have is defending their right to do these projects when a lot of the money and the funding and the development is going to be in climate mitigation and adaptation. And I think that architects and engineers are all going to want a part of it. So we're really going to have to put our foot down and explain to people that we really are the people to do these jobs. So I think that'll be a big challenge.
But mostly, really, what's the challenge is definitely the water. And it means drought in areas where the drought is, how to get their water, mostly for the people, but also for the ecosystems, that it can work normally. On the other side, the floods, the extreme rains, so the floods in the towns. Also in Czech Republic, we had in September floods, and many small towns, mostly in villages in the mountains, they are still destroyed by it. So yes, how to work with the rivers and in the cities to pretend that the damage causes of the floods. And also, I think it's also part of our field, the food security, because, and it's connected with water, where when it's going to be drought, no water, no food, and problem with food security and health of the soil. So I think that the 5 main tasks: water, drought and floods, food security, health soil, the stage of the soil, the greenery in the cities, the areas, how to work with the rainwaters.
As a person that is specialized on trees and plants, I would say that one of the biggest obstacles that we will have to overcome is probably the climate change in Sweden and the lack of shade, how this will create urban heat effects, and how to work against this climate change in the cities. And with that, there's a parallel issue in Sweden specifically, where we have not so many native trees in our flora. And that is how to choose tree species and materials for these urban areas that needs to be developed, where the materials come from, how to think about the budget, because good materials, sustainable materials are always the more expensive option, and also how to build sustainable vegetation design over time. We have big issues with trees becoming very aggressive in terms of them being much stronger than the Swedish native tree species. So introducing new ones is always a hazard and a bit scary. So I think just the conversation between landscape architects, city planners, and ecologists will probably be the biggest obstacle.
Alice and Anna from France and Bulut from Turkey emphasize more on how our profession has to adapt, listen, and respond to the context around it.
If we were talking about the Turkey, the increasing of urbanization and the increasing of population formation, the wrong urbanization that have occurred, and the fact we are in an earthquake country, we can say that, but we don't have earthquake resilient cities. So that's a big problem for us.
Climate change is a huge challenge we're going to face. I mean, I won't say a lot about it because I think we hear about it a lot. But I also think that the response of the population to some proposition about this might also be something like a challenge, especially for the management and conception of public spaces, because people are reacting maybe more and more. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I feel like it's something that we will have to face anyway, regarding the general view of the population about climate change.
In rural areas, I think landscapers will have to design according to the principle of sobriety. Rather than multiplying infrastructures, it's possible to reveal elements already present in the environment. For example, in a natural space, using rocks or tree trunks, rather than traditional street furnitures.
Another really big topic is visibility and recognition, both for the profession and within projects. Eden from Belgium, Dino from Romania, and Greta from Hungary share the frustration what it's like when landscape architects are invited into a project too late or not even at all.
Well, I'm not sure how many landscape architects around the world face similar issues, but in Romania, our profession is barely recognized. One of the biggest challenges we face is the lack of authority and involvement in the projects that directly concern us. Often we are excluded from decisions where our expertise is crucial, decisions about public space, green infrastructure, or urban design. The main threat to our profession lies in our limited ability to intervene meaningfully in these processes. The need for greater professional recognition and integration into multidisciplinary teams. That's why it's important to be part of a larger professional bodies like IFLA Europe and IFLA World. These platforms allow us to connect, learn, and adapt, to develop the tools and voice we need to advocate for our discipline and to shape the future of landscape architecture on our own terms.
In Belgium, it is like when there is like an urban development, the landscape architects are like one of the last people that will be involved in the project. And in the future, it should be like the first that initialize the projects to happen. And especially when the world is getting more and more populated, I think it will be a very important thing to ask their opinions from in the beginning.
Now, I would speak specifically about Hungary, but maybe it has some similarities to the neighboring countries as well. I see landscape architecture facing significant challenges at all scales. One major issue is that architects and other professionals often believe that they can handle landscape-related tasks without involving a trained landscape architect. Now, with the availability of AI, this escalated to the next level, especially with the economic state of the countries right now. Even though landscape architects play an irreplaceable role, their expertise is often the first to be overlooked when the budgets are tight. I believe the only way to change this is through governmental regulations and education system that produces professionals whose knowledge is essential for projects.
Agnes from Estonia, Tobias from the Netherlands, and Flor from France all speak about something a bit different, but equally important. They talk about communication, not just drawing plans, but really translating ideas, making people understand what we do and why it matters. Because if no one listens, even the best ideas won't stand a chance.
For sure, the most important thing that I thought about is communicating, because also seeing it around in my family or among my friends or even at university, people are still stuck with old school thoughts or approaches, and we as landscape architects have to be the ones communicating clearly and professionally the troubles and fears and opportunities that we can do with our public space and also with climate change. A lot of people still do not grasp what we are going to face, and also the potential that a lot of spaces have. We are the ones that could see the whole picture, but to explain it, we really need to be good at communicating what it is. So I think that's one thing that probably comes from activities outside of university, but learning how to be a better communicator is a very big key point in that, in my opinion, to get your ideas through clearly and also really be professional in it. That's what I think.
What makes our profession so interesting and also so important is how multifaceted and interdisciplinary it is. That makes it hard to pinpoint like one biggest challenge. And I think that objectively climate change is the biggest challenge we'll have to face and try to mitigate right now. But another challenge I think is really important and often overlooked and undervalued is the step of translation towards the public. So in a more polarizing political debate, many ideas that we as landscape architects and urban planners believe to be very important, like the 15-minute city and further limiting of car traffic and their speed, for example, really receive a lot of resistance because the importance of it isn't communicated properly. And when there's no consensus, people tend to generalize and categorize the other as just someone with a bad opinion. And I think facing this polarization and this increasing resistance towards innovation is one of the greater challenges we'll face in the future.
And I think the last important point, one of the biggest challenge maybe, is to get better known by public and society and be involved in the public project.
So across all these voices, from Ireland to Turkey, from Sweden to Romania, there is one big message. The challenges are huge, but there is potential. Climate, communication, recognition, it's all connected.
Exactly. Landscape architecture is not just about shaping spaces anymore. It's about shaping how people live in a changing world.
Our third question gets a little more personal. We asked, where do you see your responsibility as the next generation of landscape architects? The answers are not only about what they think is important, but also say why. So, Dino from Romania, Anna from France, Greta from Hungary, and Eden from Belgium say it's all about change. There's this shared feeling that being a landscape architect today means constantly adapting, redefining our role, and making sure that green spaces and ecological thinking are not an afterthought, but the starting point for everything else.
So, as I reply to the other questions, our biggest responsibility is change. And change is not about forgetting your past. Change is about improving the future by building on what was already built, or maybe even get inspired by older times. But as a general subject, our generation is responsible for doing our job as best as we can, while also taking care of the environment. We also have to listen to the transformations that we can all feel. Climate change will influence the most used tool we have in design: plants.
And of course, also maybe changing as the next generation of landscape architect, the way of some landscape professional to change their way of working, that maybe are sometimes more into greenwashing and everything than true interest in nature preservation. But I also think that we can have an impact on the social environment, for example, by clearly inviting everyone to participate in the use or the conception of a new space, and by thinking about how we are making this space, I think we may have a wonderful power of creating more inclusive environments, and they can also be more adapted to differences while being used in a sustainable way. I mean, maybe this is like an utopia, but yeah, I think it's our responsibility to go towards these goals.
I think communicating the importance of our profession and how our work can be essential in project is partly our responsibility. At the same time, we need to adapt and redefine our role in the response to evolving challenges we face. What I mean is landscape architecture can mean so many things, such a broad term that many may get lost in defining it or finding their way to figure out how it is an important profession.
I think it's like just making landscape architecture and green spaces matter within the urban development and be put first, and then everything around it.
Then there's another topic that came up again and again: collaboration. Adam from Czech Republic, Saskia from Sweden, and Connie from Northern Ireland all see that as a huge part of our responsibility. They talk about working across disciplines, not seeing ourselves as one with all the answers, but as the ones who connect ideas between farmers, engineers, planners, and communities.
Let's say that I will stay in Czech Republic and I will work with the landscape out of urban zone. So responsibility on agricultural land for the biodiversity, not for only people, to make the agricultural land again livable for other animals, and also to protect these lands against losing the soil, the upper parts of the soil, and preserve these areas where they're gonna be possible still grow the food crops and support the food security of our country. So that's I see myself there, yeah, because nowadays that stage of agriculture, and also because of that subsidies from European Union for the farmers, is really bad, and we need to change it, and we can help it, and we have to, as landscape architects, to be the coordinators of it.
I would say, as a younger student and also somebody that has been focusing a lot on the conversation between ecologists and landscape architects and also politicians, seeing the worth of collaboration is probably our biggest responsibility for the future, both within the field and with other occupations. There's so many people that are involved with evolving these cities, and we must not take too much pride in the design work and being an architect, but work with the people who is establishing and building these areas so that we're drawing things that seems reasonable for them to build and for people to maintain in the future, and not to sit locked in the studio and become a little blindsided of that. And I also think it's our responsibility to learn from others, especially other countries, learn from mistakes, work together and not make the same mistakes in 5 countries at once, and also learn from structural problems that we have and structural wins that we might have made.
I hope to show them that there are other options out there. I feel like a lot of university is geared towards just get you a job in the office. And I think our skill set is so broad and there's so many more options. I would like to inspire the next generation to take that skill set and use it for wider variety of stuff than just designing residential areas and the sides of roads.
And for Tobias from the Netherlands, Agnes from Estonia, and Bulut from Turkey, responsibility also means speaking up, not just within our field, but outside of it. They see landscape architects as mediators, people who can bring communities together, bridge disciplines, and open up public discussions about how we use space and resources.
I believe our responsibility lies mainly in then opening up the debates, act as mediators, educate all parties, especially when, like here in Wageningen, we are educated as generalists. We know a lot about a lot of different disciplines, and we can really make that connection, act as those the party that connects all those things, and make inclusive designs for all members of the community.
I would come back to the communication point, that I think we are the ones, a lot of landscape architects probably don't end up in landscape architecture offices and as designers, but I also would really imagine that people from landscape architecture could go to politics or working in municipalities where really bigger changes are being communicated and drawn attention to. And I find it very, very, very important that also maybe young landscape architects wouldn't limit their career perspectives only this very well wanted, very fancy, cool office work, which also probably wouldn't even suit a lot of people, but to go on positions where we could have a lot way bigger impact, again communicating the values we stand for and opportunities and struggles we might have. That's what I think is the biggest responsibility.
For Turkey, it's become an activist and spread what's landscape architecture and show why we need landscape architects. A lot of people don't know about what a landscape architect actually do.
While listening to all our colleagues from all over Europe, you can really feel it. It's not just about designing nice places anymore. It's about shaping values, teaching others to care, and staying curious enough to keep improving the way we work. The next question is more in retrospective, but towards the future of others. We asked everyone what they'd like to see improved in landscape architecture education. And it's funny. No matter where people studied, the answers sound surprisingly similar. There is a shared wish to make studying landscape architecture a little bit more real, a little bit more connected to the world outside of the studio. Adam from Czech Republic, Eden from Belgium, Greta from Hungary, and Fleur from France all said the same thing. That landscape architecture studies can feel like a bubble. Lots of design, lots of theory, but not enough real-world experience. They wish for more practice, more collaboration with professionals, and a better understanding of what working in an office or on site is really like. Basically, they want education to prepare them for what's actually waiting out there.
In the field, there is many things how to improve. that education, that program in our case, and it's to be more in practice, to get more space for people to get to some studios, to some companies which are really working in reality and not be so theoretical. So more space for practical things.
Everything we do is like very almost put in like a glass box, and we don't have like the link with the reality of how it really is in when you're working in an office or like something. So the conclusion is like introducing like the work field much sooner to the students than now, because like in the bachelor's degree, it's like only in the third year, in the beginning of the third year, that you have like internship, and then you really learn what it takes to be a landscape architect.
My bachelor's focused heavily on small-scale planning like gardens and parks, and didn't really help me see how many different directions my career can go. I did get a really good base knowledge, which I'm utterly grateful for. It is, in my opinion, a really good base for an international master's as well. However, I had no practical skills that could start my professional career. In addition, connecting with fellow professionals like architects, gardeners, and engineers, and exchanging ideas from the start of our studies would be really beneficial to broaden our perspectives and have connection later on.
I really enjoyed my studies, but it was much more a way to see our world, see and live life in our world than reality. I mean, when I started to work, I realized that I didn't know much about, especially economical and administration. I don't know if I can say that. I mean, how a project is really conduct. So if I could improve our studies, it would be on this point, make it more relevant regards to the reality of the job when we are working in an office. Also learn more about relationships between creativities and landscape architects, about citizens, doing more, for example, survey or what tools we can use or imagine to do a project with citizens.
Connie from Northern Ireland brings in another really interesting point. She wishes that our education would get more scientific. She often is missing the confidence to back up ideas with facts.
I would like to see landscape architecture taught in maybe a more scientific way in some ways. I think it's very important that we keep the art and the design side of landscape architecture. It really makes it special. But I also think that if we're going to hold our own against engineers and against architects, and if we're going to be able to justify a lot of the things that we want to do, we need to be able to come up with the math. And I think a lot of landscape architecture studies don't really teach you how to calculate like water percolation, or actually how to calculate volumes of soil, or give us really good scientific grounding in soil conditions and how they're affected, or what the requirements are around different construction sites and around road building, and like all of this technical knowledge that does require math. I think that's where we fall down. So I'd like to see that improved.
And here's something that links beautifully to what we've heard in the last question. Remember how so many people talked about working together, about connecting disciplines as our responsibility as the next generation? The same idea shows up here too. Agnes from Estonia and Saskia from Sweden both say we need more teamwork already during our studies and more opportunities to practice collaboration, not just talk about it.
In landscape architecture education, I think what I've missed very much throughout my studies, and I think it has a lot of room for improvement, is collaboration between different study programs. as to architects, engineers, and landscape construction study program students. And yeah, especially engineers, I think I haven't had any close connection with engineers. And I think these topics we are often dealing with are very similar, but yeah, the programs barely are touching each other in courses. Whether it's a life sciences university or arts university or technical university, there is so much potential to work more with different parties. And it also would teach us how to work with different specialities and see different perspectives, because very often we are in our own bubble with our own course mates and we don't really see outside.
I would say the short answer is just collaborate with students studying like engineering programs, building engineering, and city planners, and also gardeners. More assignments with those other occupation studies to like frame these collaborations early on in the education. Also having more assignments that are like case studies almost, rather than so many studio projects. Maybe be given a scenario of a site that has been built, and maybe 5 years later there is structural problems here with maintenance or something else. How would you solve that as a landscape architect? Like, who are you contacting? How do you communicate with those other occupations? Maybe having these case studies with other students that will be on the other side in the future, and see how can we solve these kind of issues together.
And finally, Dino from Romania adds something a bit more poetic. He talks about listening to people and listening to the place itself. That kind of sensitivity, he believes, should be a part of every landscape architect's education.
Well, there are many things that can be improved in the formative years of a landscape architect. The most important one to me is the lack of contact with people and understanding them through the lens of our profession. We often miss the fact that people want the space to provide function, uses, or vibes, not specific object or plans. I think that expanding our sensibility to this matter would help future landscape architects in creating more functional and more humane spaces. Moreover, our approach to landscape should be more sensible again. We should learn how to open all of our senses when we visit a site. We should try our best to understand and feel the genius loci, the spirit of the place. In that way, landscape architects would have an easier time and better results when it comes to designing a place.
So, more practice, more science, more teamwork, and maybe more sensitivity too. It's clear that education shouldn't just teach how to draw a plant, but to listen, collaborate, and adapt.
And here we are, the final question of our little European round trip. We asked everyone, how can landscape architecture become more popular? Almost everyone talked about communication, visibility, and participation. So let's hear how the next generation of landscape architects across Europe would make our field better known and better understood. Eden from Belgium and Saskia from Sweden emphasize on taking people through the process of designing.
So by doing sensibilization moments throughout the design process, like from in the beginning when you're working on like a main square, you can do like a moment like afternoon that you're like on that square and you're like, hey, I want to design something. Do you have tips, tricks, or wants, needs? And you asked that to the people that live there. Then a bit later, when you have like first design drawing, you can do that again by inviting a lot of people that live there and asking their opinions, and always like fall back on them. Like they use the space daily and they know what they need. and you can like involve them more with like the design process, and then and after that you can also use a really important thing is also like social media, I think, because like you can communicate on what you're working right now. And yeah, I think that will be already a huge step. So my conclusion is like going to the neighborhood that you're working with and asking questions, and telling them what you're doing and what you want, and yeah, and tell them that you want to hear from them as well.
I would say it's mainly to set up information signs and tell what you're doing and what the money is being used for after a big project. Both maybe going out to the media and spread the word, but also on site is very important so that people that walk by can see what their money has been used for, where we're trying to improve things, but also working a lot with temporary layers that becomes like this housewarming gift to the locals rather than spending millions on a big park that doesn't look nice the first 5 years because the vegetation is still juvenile. Working with these temporal layers that show people that we care and that we're doing this work for them. And we're trying to create these shaded places and this great vegetation for the city's well-being, and everybody should feel included in that the money is being spent for their sake.
Then there's Agnes from Estonia, Adam from Czech Republic, and Connie from Northern Ireland. All three make one point crystal clear. We need to talk more. We have to stand for our values and make ourselves visible to the public, to the people who live in these spaces, the spaces we create.
Again, I would go back to the communication. We have to make ourselves be seen by other fields and parties. Everybody knows who's an architect, but not all know who's a landscape architect. So we really have to stand for our values, be sure about what we are talking.
We should definitely discuss, we should communicate with public, not only with the majors and the government or the towns and countries, but with the public. Make a public speech, some community gardens, community events, where people will understand why the green areas are important in the cities, why the local farming is really positive, and we should protect our agricultural land. So be transparent and communicate with the public.
I think landscape architecture is very relevant to society, but I think society probably doesn't realize it yet. It's still quite a young profession. It's only really broken away from architecture in the last 150 years. So I think it's very important for all landscape architects to just keep telling people what we do and to keep finding niches that we can fit into and to keep talking to each other, because we're really such a small community when you compare it to something big. Like, how many engineers are there in the world versus how many landscape architects? There's not that many of us. So we all need to work together to promote landscape architecture and just let people know what it is. And then somewhere down the line, we all need to decide who's going to be teaching the next lot, because that's a whole other question of going back into academia. And I think that is also quite lacking. We're all so keen to get out into the field, and we need more teachers as well to keep it all going. So yeah, just telling people what we do.
Floor and Anna from France and Tobias from the Netherlands all agreed the best communication tool might actually be the work itself. We need to put our projects in the spotlight, not in a flashy way, but in a way that sparks curiosity and conversation. and is getting people interested.
To get better known by the society is one of the biggest challenges. Maybe a way to reach the large public and collectivities is to make a link between all projects that we realized and who made it. I mean, when people are working or visiting a city, usually we don't know what have been done by landscape architects. So maybe examples are the best way to get known and put in light what the landscape architects are doing.
By putting it in the spotlights, just make people see it. Many people outside of our profession that I talk to don't quite grasp what it is that we do at first glance. But as we all know, like, our work greatly influences their lives. And so we shouldn't be like anonymous and reigning from our ivory tower, be men in suits and women in suits that just say how it's going to be conversating with the people and making designs for the people. And I think that's basically the key on making our profession more known. I think also positively associated as well.
I think the visual is very important for this. As soon as people find something that they find beautiful, they often get interested in it. And even if they see the people making it, they're gonna say like, "Oh, it's beautiful. What is it?" And maybe it can gain popularity by being beautiful. And of course, bringing participation in public projects is also a strong way to do it. Like, it's a way to tell them, okay, we're going to change this place, but we are aware that it's something that will also affect you, and we care about your opinion. Like, we really care about it, and that's how we want to prove it to you.
And finally, Dino from Romania brings it all together beautifully. He says that every built project is already a form of communication. When people walk through a space we designed, they feel what landscape architecture is, often without even knowing it.
So we can address this issue to two different target groups, the public and the people in power. Many times, these two groups overlap. I think the best way to spread the word about the importance or even the existence of our profession is through advertisement. Not the typical advertisement on the radio or anything like that. I'm talking about projects. What could be easier than reaching a public that is actively using a public space? Whenever someone passes through a space that was designed by a landscape architect, they should know it. Because we, landscape architects, not only design spaces that are functional and accessible, but we create an experience. We facilitate memorable and effective connections between the space and its visitors. We are the ones who make the best out of a brownfield, a liminal space, a busy street, a vegetated plot that we call a park. That being said, I think the most effective way for landscape architecture to gain more popularity is through on-site advertisement. It's like telling people you're a great cook while they're already sitting at your table eating your best food. They're experiencing the proof before you even say a word.
So, whether it's through participation, communication, beauty, or experience, what everyone's really saying is we need to show up, to stand up. We need to be visible, approachable, and proud of what we do.
Exactly. Because remember, landscape architecture is already shaping people's everyday lives. We just need to make sure that they see it, they feel it, and know it's us.
That wraps up this special international episode of Next Generation Landscape Architecture beautifully. We've just heard answers to 5 big questions about personal goals, challenges, responsibility, education, and how to make our profession more visible. And honestly, it's been so inspiring to hear all these voices, from Belgium to Turkey, from Sweden to Romania, all thinking about the same topics, but each with a different local twist.
Yeah, and what really struck me most was how much connects us. No matter where we study or work, everyone talked about climate change, about working with people, about communication, how important it is to explain what we do and to bring others along in the process. At the same time, there were some interesting differences too. In some countries like Hungary or Romania, landscape architects are still fighting for professional recognition, while in others, like Sweden or the Netherlands, the focus has already shifted more towards collaboration and community participation.
Yes, exactly. And also in comparison to our last German-speaking episode with the same questions, the hopes are the same everywhere. More practical education, stronger network, and a more confident, visible next generation of landscape architects. So for this episode, a very big thanks goes out to all our friends and colleagues. Adam Miller, Agnes Aromenza, Alice Kos, Anna Robert, Bulut Şengöş, Connie Dawson, Dino Lazar, Eden Boll-Space, Flore Gagnon, Greta Fazekas, Saskia Sko, and Tobias Ahrens.
So, now it's your turn. We'd really love to hear what you think about these questions. Where do you see your own responsibility as a future or current landscape architect? What do you wish had been part of your studies? And how can we as a profession make more people understand what we actually do?
Send us a message, leave a comment, or share your thoughts and let us know if you'd like to hear more episodes in English. This one was a bit of an experiment, but we loved hearing from so many international voices. And maybe next time you could be one of them. You can reach us via Instagram, email, or LinkedIn. You'll find our contact details in the show notes below. I'm Rahel Küng.
And I'm Jakob Endemann. Thanks for listening and see you next time on our podcast Nachwuchs Landschaftsarchitektur. Or let's stay in English for now, Next Generation Landscape Architecture.
Bye-bye.
Bye.